So the History Channel has been putting out some fine programming recently, like this one.
Jesus, considered by many to be the most important person in history. Now, a new investigation hopes to reveal who among us are descendants of Jesus.
Stop! Fuck you! Right off the bat, none of us are descendants of Jesus. Jesus is a fictional character. There's never been any evidence whatsoever put forward that the man Jesus from the fictional stories in the Bible actually existed to begin with. He was actually a real person. You would have to first fucking prove that to me first before you can go on to the history of fucking Jesus. A lot of people want to make fun of MTV for the poor programming they put out, for the harmful social justice warrior programming they put out. But in my opinion, right now, the History Channel is putting out the most insidious, harmful programming. Basically, the History Channel has turned into a full-fledged Christian channel, and programming you used to could only see on channels that would show shit like the 700 Club are now showing on the History Channel, hidden behind the veneer of history, the credibility that the History Channel name brings to these shows. So I can keep my mouth shut as long as History Channel was just talking about bullshit like ancient aliens. But now they're pretending that Jesus is fucking real without even providing any evidence whatsoever that he was a real human being. I just can't keep my mouth shut fucking anymore about this shit. So basically, I thought I would go through this obvious religious propaganda that's being shown on the History Channel now with you guys and just show you what amazing bullshit it actually is. So let's get started, shall we? So let me just break it down for you. They got this one religious dweeb who continuously says shit like,
the Bible's going to be a perfect roadmap for us for our journey because it is woven together with Jesus' life from birth to a boy to his relatives. And that gets missed a lot, but his relatives are in there. And this will help us track down DNA to find Jesus and to find his family.
And then the other guy who was supposed to be the scientist guy, who was supposed to be the skeptic.
Recent breakthroughs in technology mean that we can now understand more about Jesus the man than we ever have been able to before. This is an incredible opportunity to use DNA science to explore perhaps the most important and famous man in history, Jesus.
Who is not fucking skeptic at all, does not question anything he's told, does not question any of the history of the Bible whatsoever, does not pose any legitimate questions whatsoever, just goes along with everything, and intends to lend credence to all this bullshit with his expertise in science. And the guy's even like, yeah, I'm a man of faith. I don't even need any fucking evidence to believe. So somehow that makes me a skeptic.
Because I am a man of faith, I don't need relics to convince me of Jesus. So I can go in very easily to these relics with skepticism.
No, you are not a fucking skeptic, dude. Bullshit on that. The fucking skeptical science guy even says this shit.
The Sea of Galilee. This freshwater lake was the place where Jesus recruited 4 fishermen to be his apostles: Peter, James, John, and Andrew. These were the waters that Jesus walked on. The shore on which Jesus fed 5,000 followers from 3 loaves of bread and 2 fish.
It makes me appreciate that the Bible is a work of history and that it does describe some things that are really there, out there.
No, motherfucker! Just because a real-life place exists in a fictional story does not mean the fictional story is fucking true. Hey, New York exists. Does that make Spider-Man true? Fucking no, it doesn't! You're supposed to be the fucking voice of reason in this show, and it's obvious, just like the goddamn rest of them, you're just a shill! That's pretty disappointing, to be honest with you. So, of course, where do you start when you have absolutely no scientific evidence whatsoever that a fictional character in stories actually existed to begin with, but you want to still try to prove it anyway to get a lot of ratings on a TV show? Obviously, you start going to the fakes and relics that have been created throughout the history of the church to try to dupe their followers into coming to their church and viewing these relics and giving them money. It's basically like a tourist attraction. It's a tourist racket. It's the same thing Disney figured out a long time ago. That's all religion is. So they faked a bunch of these fucking relics in order for a bunch of gullible motherfuckers to come in and view the relics and pay them a lot of cash. And so these guys are going to be like, let's go look at the fucking relics, see if any of these ancient relic forgeries have any DNA on them, and then try to use that as scientific proof Jesus existed. Brilliant! The first relic hoax they could find, the Shroud of Turin, probably one of the most famous hoaxes of all time, already fucking proven to be a hoax. They carbon dated it, found out it was a medieval hoax. Then immediately, of course, the church said, no, nobody can study it anymore. You guys are wrong. They haven't let anybody really study it since. Because they want to still pretend that it's somehow the Shroud of Jesus, because it makes them a lot of fucking money. It's a tourist attraction. Obviously, since the Shroud of Turin has been around since the Middle Ages, it's been handled a bunch of times by a whole bunch of different people over a whole bunch of different stretches of landscape. And so it has lots of fucking DNA on it. So basically, they took an old sample of it and found all the different types of DNA off there they could possibly find. They found several different kinds, some of it from India, Europe, but one specific strand was from the Middle East. And of course, they ignored all the other strands that were found, and they were like, hey, maybe this Middle Eastern strand is Jesus. And of course, that particular Middle Eastern strand found out to be a sect of religious people who were not known to mix or be any part of the Jewish faith whatsoever. And since Jesus was Jewish, probably not a very good chance he was from that particular lineage of DNA. But they just fucking ignored that shit. They don't want to pay attention to that shit because it proves the Bible wrong, and can't have that on the fucking History Channel. Can't fucking prove the Bible wrong. The Bible is a historical document. So they're like, who knows? Maybe one of Jesus' ancient ancestors fucked one of these sect of religious people. We don't know. It could have happened. Maybe this is Jesus' DNA. So then they go find other motherfuckers who have the same DNA as that religious sect. And they're like, you're probably a descendant of Jesus. And they're like, holy shit, I'm a descendant of Jesus. And they're like, yeah, man, you're totally a fucking descendant of Jesus. But the thing is, you're not a fucking descendant of Jesus. There was DNA from all kinds of cultures on that thing, from being handled over the many fucking centuries. And they found some from a Middle Eastern area. Probably has nothing to do with Jesus whatsoever because he's a fictional character that did not even exist in the first place. Has nothing the fuck to do with you. You did not just win the Jesus lottery. Settle the fuck down. This is the History Channel trying to fucking trick people into believing science has proven Jesus when no such thing has ever fucking been done. There's no evidence Jesus existed to fucking begin with. This is simply religious propaganda put on by a shameless channel in order to get ratings and try to make money. This show reminds me so much of Ghost Hunters, where they're trying so fucking hard to find any evidence they can whatsoever, but since there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever, they fucking have to grasp at any straw they possibly can, try to invent evidence or pretend evidence exists where it does not. This is all these motherfuckers are doing. So next, what they decided to do is they decided to go to another relic that's supposedly John the Baptist. And without any evidence whatsoever, they just say John the Baptist was Jesus' cousin. Because the Bible story says it's true, just like it says snakes talked in bullshit. So we know this has got to be fucking true. This dude really has to be the fucking cousin of Jesus. And so apparently this church was digging around underneath its fucking altars and shit, and they found a whole fucking bunch of bones, and one of the bones was fucking from a long time ago. They carbon dated it to 2,000 years ago. So obviously that must be fucking John the Baptist bone, who's the cousin of Jesus. So all they gotta do is they gotta take that fucking DNA out of that bone, then compare it to the Shroud of Turin, which is a fucking fake, and if those two DNAs match, fucking we have a miracle and shit. Biggest ratings ever. So then these scientists take these old fucking bones they had no idea where they came from. But the church wouldn't let them take them back to the lab and do any kind of real scientific experiments. So they actually had to go to the church and try to get what little information they can. And apparently what ends up happening is, instead of getting any DNA off the fucking bones whatsoever, they accidentally got the DNA from one of the fucking scientists who went to collect the DNA. And oops, they ended up fucking the whole thing up. So unfortunately, this is not proof one way or the other. Fucking course it's not. There is no proof. This shit is bullshit. Just like the fucking ghost shows. So anyway, the next thing they do is they go to a bone expert who found a bone with a nail through it in a really strange way. And so he used that as evidence to prove that they actually crucified Jesus on an X instead of a cross. Apparently the evidence suggests that back in the Roman days, they actually nailed people to X's, not crosses. They nailed their feet individually, one on the bottom of one side of the X and the other on the bottom of the other side of the X. But the religious dude wasn't fucking having it, because that wasn't what the Bible said. The Bible said it was a fucking cross, man. That's what they've been worshiping all these years. So fuck the evidence. I reject the evidence. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Mr. Science Man.
One of the biggest problems I have with Hershkowitz's argument is the biblical record, because the New Testament is first and foremost a historical document.
All the evidence that confirms his biases, he's totally willing to believe, but anything that goes against the narrative of his preconceived notion, fuck that shit. So then they go talk to this other fucking douchebag who claims that he has a rag that was wrapped around the face of Jesus. And he also claims that in many ways, the rag matches the Shroud of Turin. So they're like, hey, why don't you just let scientists study both that rag and the Shroud of Turin? And they're like, no, sorry. The church has decided that we can't let any scientists study this shit anymore to see if they actually really do compare. But just believe us, dude, they actually fucking do. That's actually what they fucking said in this documentary.
Is it possible that we could get a sample?
Unfortunately, at this moment, the church is not allowing sample taking for any kind of tests at the moment.
The church won't actually let scientists study any of these relics anymore. They won't let them study the Shroud of Turin or this fucking rag that was supposedly wrapped around Jesus' face. But just take their super duper word for it. They match and it really is Jesus and shit. Well, no thanks, dudes, but I don't take your fucking word. In my experience, religious people tend to be fucking liars. If you won't actually let scientists study any of this shit, how the fuck do you expect people to take you seriously? But I know the reason you won't. I know because you know it's all fakes, and if scientists actually study it, they'll find out it's fakes. And you shady religious motherfuckers want to continue to use this bullshit to bilk people out of their money. That's all that's going on here. And the History Channel should be fucking ashamed of themselves for pretending to use science to prove any of this bullshit true. None of this bullshit has ever been fucking true in any meaningful way whatsoever. There is no evidence whatsoever any of this shit happened to begin with. And the History Channel has simply turned into a propaganda network for Christianity. So anyway, I plan to watch more of these History Channel Christian propaganda shows. Call them out for it. I think it should be an entertaining series. People should definitely be talking about this more. Hopefully anybody who still takes this channel seriously will stop. This channel has no credibility anymore. It's the History Channel, where truth is history. But eventually, maybe, if we keep embarrassing them and hammering them enough, they'll start showing actual historical programs on here again. But until they do, I'll keep making fun of them, and I'll keep beating these motherfuckers up with logic. Fuck yes. Hey guys, thanks for watching my show. Please rate and comment. Also, if you enjoy my show, please support it on Patreon. My patrons are really the only reason my channel is able to keep going. So if you like what I do, please support it. Thanks, guys.